Greetings and salutations, everybody. Quick shout out to Uber comrades on Patreon supporting this channel and my content, Independent Left News. Definitely check them out. They're a really great source and resource in my opinion, and my partner. Thank you. Rosa came across this article that was being shared by the Friends of Socialist China page on Twitter, and it's detailing China's poverty eradication efforts. Again, China very recently eliminated extreme poverty in that country. I believe they have a population of, 1.4 billion, something like that. This isn't something that gets talked about very much or at all, frankly, in Western press, as the tweet from Friends of Socialist China points out. And I think that's for very obvious reasons. China is a socialist country, and they've been able to do so many great things there for the working class, for the most vulnerable and marginalized. We don't like to, or the Western media doesn't like to highlight that because they don't like the Chinese Communist Party or that it is a socialist country, socialism with Chinese characteristics. So I thought I would share this article, and we can learn a little bit about what things China has done to eliminate extreme poverty in that country. It's hard to argue with that, right? One of the most profound achievements in human history, and yet it's barely received a mention in Western media because, again, they don't want to paint China as being successful in any way. They want to demonize it. They want to start and fuel this new Cold War with China, when in fact the working class needs to be building, solidarity with the people of China and abroad more generally. So let's check out this article. Wait, I think I need to switch because that's still showing that tweet. It sure is. So here we go. Boom, boom, and here we go. And there we go. Definitely will need to subscribe to that later. How do I get out of there? Here we go. I will subscribe to you later. Don't worry. Review. Serve the People, the Eradication of Extreme Poverty in China. Article by Carlos Martinez, originally published in slightly condensed form in Beijing Review, September 10th, 21. Late 2020, the Chinese government announced its goal to eliminate extreme poverty by 2021. The centenary of the founding of the Communist Party. So the Communist Party of China has been around for 100 years. Congrats. That's amazing. The start of the Targeted Poverty Alleviation Program 2013, just under 100 million people are identified as living below the poverty line. 7 years later, the number was 0. 100 million people were identified as living below the poverty line. 2013 only took China 7 years to get 100 million people out of poverty. Imagine if the United States took on such an effort. Of course, they couldn't because they are a capitalist country beholden to the profit motive. Hence, they can't actually look out for the well-being of the masses like they can do in China because they're ran by the Chinese Communist Party that is actually concerned with the well-being of the masses there. Just imagine we need the equivalent of something similar in the US, right? We need a socialist revolution like they had in 49. To eradicate extreme poverty in developing country of 1.4 billion people, which just 72 years ago at the time of the founding of the People's Republic of China was one of the poorest countries in the world, characterized by widespread malnutrition, illiteracy, foreign domination, and technical backwardness, is a truly extraordinary achievement. And yet the news of China's success, inasmuch as it was remarked upon at all in the West, was greeted with ambivalence. After all, such news items does not fit comfortably within the framework of escalating Cold War propaganda in China, which is presented as an enemy of democracy. That's exactly what I was talking about earlier. About open action, A subversive and malign force in international relations, when in fact it's just projection. That's the United States, obviously. fits the U.S. to a T. It's projection. In this info war, the stories that resonate are those where China is perpetuating cultural genocide against the Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang or enacting land grabs in Africa. Media landscape of this sort has no room for the news of hundreds of millions of Chinese peasants that used to be extremely poor and can now enjoy a dignified life. Thankfully, China's achievements have not gone entirely unnoticed. For example, Friends of Social China held its first webinar, China's Path to Zero Poverty, June 2021, bringing together experts from around the world to share their perspective on China's poverty eradication. And on July 23rd of this year, Tricontinental Institute for Social Research published an important dossier, Serve the People, the Eradication of Extreme Poverty in China. I believe the Tricontinental Institute, that is Vijay Prashad, right? So the dossier based on extensive research, case studies, and interviews carried out by a small team on the ground in China. So they actually went there. That's important. While it is focused on the targeted poverty alleviation program pursued since 2013, also provides key historical background, noting the road to ending poverty, improving the living standards of Chinese people starts with the beginning of Chinese Revolution. Of course it does. Most important early step was dismantling feudal ownership structures in the countryside and enacting comprehensive land reform. Rural collectivization led to a rapid increase in productivity, enabling agricultural surplus to be invested into industrial development and social welfare. And they've obviously, had the industrial development just skyrocketed since the, revolution. From 1978, China embarked upon a program of reform and opening up designed to increase productivity, technological capacity, and income through the introduction of market measures and commodification of various parts of the economy. While this ongoing period has led to vastly increased levels of inequality, China in 1978 was one of the most egalitarian countries in the world. It was nonetheless essential for the overall project of wiping out poverty. That's kind of something that Marx, talks about, how the, productive forces need to be expanded, very quickly, during a, socialist transition. The authors of the dossier note that the unprecedented economic growth resulted from reform and opening up was not an end to itself, but a means to improve the lives of the people. Exactly. Indeed, between 1978 and 2013, the number of people living below the World Bank threshold of absolute poverty dropped from 80% to 9% of the population. From 80% to 9%. This is partially misleading since increased income correlated with increased outgoings of newly commodified goods and services. Nevertheless, the Chinese pop undoubtedly experienced huge improvement in living standards during that period. Since becoming president, Xi Jinping has made poverty eradication one of the government's central policies. And again, at 2013, there were still 100 million people in China living below the poverty level. It's been completely eradicated. That is a massive achievement in a country, again, 1.4 billion people. Identifying those that remain in poverty and developing plans to meet their specific needs. The strategy is guided by 4 questions. Who should be lifted out of poverty? Who carries out the work? What measures need to be taken to address poverty? How can evaluations be done to ensure that people remain out of poverty? The first step was to identify. In 2014, 800,000 party cadres were organized to visit and survey every household across the country, identifying 89.96 million poor people in 29.48 households and 128,000 villages. More than 2 million people were tasked to verify data. So huge collective effort. Hello? Yes. Yes. Let's see. The 2 assurances are for adequate food and clothing. The 3 guarantees are for access to medical services, safe housing and drinking water, custody, at least 9 years of free education. That's pretty awesome. So I'm not going to read this whole thing. We'll just make the video a little bit longer, but it just goes into a little bit more detail of what they did and how they went about it. Really, really cool. You're going to have to put stuff